Good afternoon, esteemed speaker and participants from across the globe. Welcome to our highly anticipated international webinar on Blue Food and Climate Sustenance, brought to you by SEMS Welfare Foundation. I am your host for today's international webinar, Venkata Hemant, and it gives me immense pleasure to be your host for this enlightening event. Today, we are gathered here to explore the critical topic of blue food and its profound impact on climate sustenance. Our distinguished speaker, Dr. Payal B. Joshi, is an eminent expert and leader in field of green chemistry, catalysis, and food chemistry. She brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to this significant discussion. Before we proceed, let us take a moment to reflect on the importance of sustainable food sources and their role in mitigating climate challenges. The concept of blue food holds the potential to revolutionize our approach to food production and contribute to more sustainable and resilient future. Now, it's my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Payal B. Joshi, currently serving as Director and Head, Operations and Method Development at Shefali Research Laboratories, Mumbai, India. Dr. Joshi has a commendable background as an assistant professor at Mukesh Patel School of Technology, Management and Engineering. Dr. Payal B. Joshi is currently contributing to cutting edge research in the field of green chemistry, catalysis, and food chemistry. Her applications with prestigious organizations including Royal Society of Chemistry and American Chemical Society showcase her commitment towards advancing scientific knowledge. With such a distinguished background, Dr. Payal B. Joshi is undoubtedly a visionary leader in the exploration of blue food and its implications of climate sustenance. Now, without further ado, let us eagerly await two insights that Dr. Payal B. Joshi will share on this fascinating topic of blue food and climate sustenance. Thank you all for being a part of this international webinar. Let's make the most out of this opportunity to extend our knowledge and understanding. Over to you, Dr. Payal B. Joshi, ma'am.
Thank you, Venkata, for such a nice introduction. I would really also thank SEMS Foundation for giving me this opportunity to share my knowledge and expertise pertaining to food chemistry today. Okay, the topic today, which we have been looking at, is blue foods and climate sustenance. Now, what do you mean, and why am I today being talking this topic, and why am I talking about this particular topic is because it is so much in the news, so much has been discussed about in terms of research articles, and there has been so called a deliberation stating that we are now today in the world of blue revolution. Now we have to look at, really, are we going to get a climate sustenance pertaining through blue foods is what my topic is about. So when I say blue foods and climate sustenance, I actually mean to say that what exactly are blue foods? Now, what has been propagated through the media and through so-called scientific articles, any of the aquatic marine captures, such as fishes, lobsters, prawns, all the food that you get, whether it is the seaweed, the algae, all that is being consumed by the human population, by the global population, which comes under the umbrella of blue foods. That for you is a blue food. So do not be under the impression that it is the color. It is basically what you're getting from the marine ecosystem that happens to be the blue food. Or rather, putting it very simply, it is an aquatic food or the marine food that we have on our plate. It has been so suggested and it has been so propagated and promoted through policymakers, through the blue food assessment. Over the just in some few years, this has happened, and just 4 or 5 years, we are seeing a lot of deliberation being done. The very first paper coming out, some few papers coming out in the very prestigious Journal of Nature, stating that aquatic foods are much better. They are greener, they are environment friendly if you incorporate them in your diets, and that is going to allow us to reach to climate sustainability. We already know what is climate change. I will not talk much about it, but I can say the minute I say the term climate change, the very first thing or the first vision that comes in our mind are the melting glaciers. But climate change is now visibly seen through the biomarkers, such as our animals, the wildlife, how they are migrating, how their migrating patterns have changed. Coming back, and I do not want to digress much towards climate sustenance at present. I'll be doing that as I go through my topic. But the very first thing is, first, let us understand why, on what premise we are saying that blue foods or aquatic foods are considered to be sustainable, why these have been proposed, who is proposing this, and are we really going to look at it in a sustainable way? Are they really sustainable? And we are going to ask some tough questions here. So it is going to be, rather than blue foods and climate sustenance, I would put it with a question mark. Blue foods and climate sustenance? Is it going to be going together? Is what is going to be my final objective and the final concluding remarks for today's session. Now, what are aquatic foods? That is the right term, I would say. Blue food is just given out to the through the media, to the population, to the public, to say that blue foods, right? It's an aquatic. All the marine captures, whatever that you're going to get from the marine ecosystem, is an aquatic food. Whether it is a seaweed, we know about edible seaweeds coming on the plate. You can see it in Japan, in Korea, in many other such Asian countries. Edible seaweeds have already been there in their culinary, their plates. You have, obviously, we know about fishes, we know about the various other crabs, lobsters, crustaceans, all those coming under the blanket or the umbrella of aquatic. So all those things that you get from the marine ecosystem are considered as blue foods. Now, why there has been, now there is one thing that they are saying, that these blue foods are contributors to human health. They are going to provide much higher nutritional value to you. Once you take it on a plate, it is going to give you more nutritional value, and it is going to lower the EI. Now, what do you mean by EI? That is basically a metric. We call it as the environmental impact. It is so said that that particular metric or the measurement, lower the EI, better is that particular solution that the industry is providing. In this case, I'll be talking about the fishing industry or the food industry. So if they say that you have blue food on your plate, fish on your plate, it is having a lower impact. Lower to what? When I say lower, it is going to be compared to what? We have observed that this particular proposition or this proposal is so based that they are comparing the fishes and the crustacean diet with that of chicken or the red meat that the people consume on a daily basis or maybe on a weekly basis. Or I don't want to go into the cultural premise of this topic at present. That will be in my concluding remarks. But if you are the eater, the non-vegetarian eater who have these in their diets, the red meat food, it has been so said that the red meat is known to cause, there is a direct correlation with CVDs. Now, what are CVDs? Cardiovascular disease. So it has been so said that if you have fish replacing chicken on your plate, it's a better nutritional factor on your plate. It is going to lower the environmental impact. Normally, it is so thought that if I do not drive a car, I'm leaving and I go by public transport, I'm taking care of the environment. The food that you eat also has a contributing effect to the climate in the long run. And hence, food on your plate is very important. And the food industry has already recognized that. Right now, talking about lower EI. So they are saying that, okay, if you have fish in your diet, it has a lower environmental impact, which means it is good. So they are blue washing. This is proposed at present. It is not on not a weak science. It is kind of shown in a very short-sighted way. Why are they all proposing this for over a long period of time? If you just Google search blue foods and their environmental impact, you'll find a lot of news articles pertaining to this particular topic. Why is it so? Is because we are in a desperate need to achieve the sustainable development goals set up by the United Nations. And it is proclaimed that by 2030, we are supposed to achieve them, right? We have to ensure that we achieve. Otherwise, by 2040, it has been so projected that we will not have any ice around the poles of our Earth, whether it is Arctic or Antarctic. There is going to be severe climate changes, which is going to definitely affect our food and our habitat. Are we achieving them through this so-called blue foods? We have to check that. Next is why we say why blue foods are very important or why fishes. Undoubtedly, fishes or crustacean or any marine capture is far superior. Why? Because they are diverse in nature. We have so many varieties of species of fishes and lobsters and crabs or any other seaweed. If even the planktons that we get, they are also edible. Of course, not all of them are edible. Not all fishes are edible. Not all crabs are going to be edible to you. All crustaceans or shellfishes are not going to be edible to you, but majority of them are consumed largely in the population. I'm talking about especially Korean population or Japanese population. You have even the other Middle East and all these countries, they do consume. US, Europe, they have these consumption. Plus, there are elite population also who are going to consume octopuses. We have reports where sharks are being consumed. Of course, now that they are banned, but they are very much still illegally farmed and fished and being considered. Now, when you bring such a kind of a policy, now they wanted to push this policy. Why? Because under the umbrella, and this happened with a lot of fanfare, like it was a big news and all the media outlets, and there was this BFA that was institutionalized, which is the Blue Food Assessment, and you can have this website on the you can just find it out. You'll find that over 100 scientists from 25 countries have come up, and they have started propagating and promoting and institutionalizing the policy with the government to come up. So it is Stanford, you have many other university professors coming together, and they are working towards assessing this and converting the blue food market totally to the public. Right now, what we have seen now, just recently this paper had come. So there are four ways that has been propagated, that has been proposed, telling the public through science that when you have such kind of marine diet on your plate, like edible seaweeds, or you have crabs, or you have any kind of such white meat on your plate, it tends to help in reducing the nutritional deficiencies that we see along the coast. Now, nutritional deficiencies could be many. You can have, you majorly, we have the biggest nutritional deficiency is vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin B12, and you have many other. Vitamin D is again all micronutrients, especially. Micronutrients are very low. We see in our global population, very low. And it has been so professed and propagated that yes, you have to have these foods to circumvent this problem and to replenish these micronutrients in you. Macronutrients are taken care of. You have carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and fibers, and things like that. But when you talk about micronutrients, global population is very much confused. And it is so said that you go for these diets and you are going to take care of your nutrient deficiencies. So first, according to Krona et al., in her paper, she has mentioned about reducing, so it's fourfold, reducing nutrient deficiencies amongst the global population through the consumption of blue foods or aquatic foods. Second is disease burden. We are having a lot of disease burden pertaining to the mother of all diseases is obesity. So obesity, after that, whatever are the related metabolic disorders such as diabetes, CVDs, cardiovascular diseases, these are totally related to the red meat consumption. So if we reduce the red meat consumption on our plate and we have a lot of these nutritional foods obtained from the marine ecosystem, we are going to definitely have a better, and they can say that over a period of 10 years, we can reduce this burden. So this is all on the graphical plots you can see in her paper. I've already given the reference. If you are interested, you can check this paper. They have given all in a global map, and you can see all the blue regions where this is actually done. Where does India stand? Where is Indonesia standing? Or you can compare China being the largest ones, which is working towards this direction. Then comes this environmental impact, that is EI, as I told you. Lower the EI, better the solution is what they are saying. So if there is a lower EI metric here, the greenhouse gas, that is GHG emissions will be lowered. And naturally, we are going to take care of all our things and everything will be nice. And we can put up this policy ahead. and save. And there is one more: humanitarian ground has been utilized. If you read this study and completely, do a critical assessment of the study, they are saying that they are going to safeguard livelihoods. Now, how you will say? Like, first of all, if you talk about fisheries sector, it's largely operated on the ground by the communities which are largely indigenous communities. The communities who are only dependent upon the fishing. Okay, so they have been doing these fishing right from their generations ago. So it has been passed out as an art to them. So there are these indigenous communities. You especially find this in Indonesia, and you can find their livelihoods largely depend upon the fishing sector. So more the fishing happens is what the fishing industry is saying, that okay, if we have more of these, we are definitely going to have a climate sustenance. Also, we are going to take care of their livelihoods. They can earn out of this. So naturally, this is a humanitarian ground being utilized, called as safeguarding livelihoods through fishing. So they are basically saying do more fishing. And cultures. Okay, all these cultures, they are all indigenous cultures. These are all the fisheries sector under again the umbrella of climate change, right? As I told you in the earlier part, that why we are doing this, why the scientists are so much bringing out this blue foods and talking about blue revolution as such, is because they want that SDGs should be reached. And it has been so identified. What I could critically assess was they were actually targeting these three. If you can see on the slide, there are three icons, and there are a total of 17 sustainable development goals which needs to be reached, out of which three of them are directly related to what I'm talking to you right now. That is the blue foods or the aquatic. 12, SDG number 12, responsible consumption and production. 13, climate action. We are taking some serious steps towards climate action. And 14, life below water. So these are the three targeted SDGs which is being proposed, that if we promote a lot of blue foods in the diet of the human population, we can achieve a climate sustainability to a larger extent by achieving at least these three. These are also interconnected to the rest of the goals, all the 13 goals. It somehow can relate to. Again, we have to ask ourselves, when we are being feeded such kind of an information, we have to actually see and critically analyze, is it really going to be that way, right? By now, whatever I have spoken, and if you have listened to it intently, there may be some questions that may have already formulated in your mind. And I can feel there is one thing that we need to really know, whether we are going to get the climate sustenance by changing my diet plan entirely. Do I really need to change my diet entirely? Not really. We need not change our diet entirely just so that the narrative of these scientists are being pushed ahead. We have to now question that why these things have come up, and we have to ask these tough questions. And also, it should be open to the public so that they can also give and negotiate that ultimately it is going to come into their diet. So, what are you trying to propose? Right? Fair and square, the very first question, that the minute you read these reports, are aquatic foods sustainable? We have been listening to the term sustainable so many times that it has actually lost foothold. Sustainability ideally means it should be sustainable to my progeny. Today, what I'm doing on my desk or in my life, okay, whatever my habits are, whatever I do right from the day I wake up, and my daily activities, driving a car, we say car is not a sustainable method of transportation. So we go for a public transport and we think that we have taken care of the environment and the ecosystem. But what about our food diets? That's highly unregulated. When you say sustainable, it has a larger responsibility. This word is very responsible word. It means that, let us say, whatever I do today, it should be sustainable to my next generation, right? My next generation, in the sense the planet's next gen, and we only have one planet, right? Are these aquatic foods sustainable? Coming to that, we have certain nuances to look at. We have certain pointers. One, as I told you, we have a lot of varieties of marine captures. Over 2,300 species are considered edible, and they're called as food fish. It is not necessarily a fish per se, it's a food fish, is the term being utilized in the Blue Food Assessment. And over 600 species can be found, which means just like agriculture, you can farm the fishes in ponds and reservoirs and you can harvest them. So you can breed a fish, you can harvest, you can breed them, you can nourish them in small ponds, or the just like you do it in farms for the plant and crops, same way you can do it for fishes. We call that as the aquaculture. And aquaculture also is going parallelly besides these indigenous communities who go into the ocean and get the fishes and the marine captures to feed the whole population. So over 600 species can be farmed, which means the ones which are endangered species in the marine ecosystem, you don't get much of a catch, but it has a huge demand amongst, especially amongst the affluent population. They are being farmed. Okay, so you can again see there is a kind of a critical element here again. High nutritional quotient is being said. That is undoubtedly compared to your chicken or your meat, piggery, poultry, all these kind of foods, if you compare them with marine foods, edible seaweeds, especially edible seaweeds, fishes, all the types of edible fishes that we talk about, they are very high in nutritional profile. But that nutritional profile in terms of protein has been given out a lot. It has a very high amount of protein. Fatty acids, especially omega 3 fatty acids, very important. We are finding deficiency amongst the population, okay, for this particular good fatty acids. Micronutrients, as I told you, vitamin A, B12, and other calcium, iodine, zinc, iron. Zinc is very commonly obtained as a micronutrient from consuming crabs. They are very high on the zinc quotient. And zinc is again a very important element present in our body, which is necessary, okay, but in a very small amount. It's again said that if I have a plate, let us say, of fish fry, and I have a plate of, let us say, a chicken fry, it has been so compared that the lower greenhouse gas emission is in case of the marine foods, when I farm the marine foods or I capture the marine, compared to beef and poultry and piggery, right? In this case, why is it so sad? Because they are saying that fishes can live in the water, they have not to be fed, okay? They have the water around them. They have not to be fed water, they have not to be given grains, right? They feed on their own, they are all self sustaining. Whereas in case of chicken, you have to feed them, you have to take care of their litter, you have to take care of their feathers. They should look good, then only the consumer is going to eat that. Same thing goes for pig. Okay, if you're a beef eater or a pig, you're going to definitely eat, you're going to go for a better looking meat, right? They should be firm. So if you talk about pigs, okay, same thing. It's a red meat. If you talk about beef, that is cows and all those, you're definitely going to talk about it being a red meat. And cows are known to emit a lot of methane. And it's so said that to maintain one full herd of cattle or whole of piggery, you're definitely going to have a lot of greenhouse gas emission just to take care of. Apart from that, sometimes the hormonal supplements needed to be given so that their skin should look shiny, then only the consumer is going to take, right? All these cases are there. So the greenhouse emissions are very high. Now coming to the point that is it really high? It's not that very high. It's like comparing apples and oranges, right? Both of them are going to be releasing greenhouse gas. So it's certainly not true when you say that there are lower greenhouse gas emissions for, the fishes. I'll tell you why. I'll keep that point a little later. Supporting, as I told you, if we have these foods coming into our daily diet or into our weekly diet, let us assume, supporting rural and indigenous fishery communities has been promoted. But you will not find any report where they report about the capture, when they are capturing fishes, these fishermen, when they go into the sea, okay, now there's a lot of demand. And with this blue food, there is a greater demand. And when you tell them that you have to get these fishes and you have to get all of these marine captures, what will happen is naturally there will be overfishing. Now, if there is overfishing, you know what is going to be. entire ecosystem gets disrupted. The food web itself gets disrupted, right? This also has to be taken care of. And anytime they will always show, if you see this propaganda being done or the promotions being done on the fishery, right? On the fishery community, what they say is like, okay, they are going out in the sea and they are capturing, the fishes and the marine captures, but they never show that they die also when they do. They sometimes themselves get captured in the super trawlers, and they have lost a lot of fishermen in the sea because of this continuous need. Actually, this indigenous community, they know when they are supposed to go for fishing. They will never go in the time when the fishes breed. But now, because of this unwarranted, unprecedented demand, they have to even go during the breeding season, right? What is the fishing industry doing here? So humanitarian ground is shown, but the actual scene, they will never show the fishermen die, right? Challenges. That brings me to the point of challenges. There's going to be overfishing. There is overfishing happening. One third of the marine fisheries are overfished. We don't have sustainable fishing itself. So what are we talking about? Are we really sustainable? The answer would be highly no. Pollution. Nobody is talking about, when you're talking about fishes and when you talk about these marine ecosystem, our oceans are also polluted, highly polluted. And when you consume, especially a fish, they are actually undergoing through bioaccumulation. We already know that they are going to have bioaccumulation of heavy metals. That same thing is going to go when you ingest it into your body. Second, which is a huge problem now, microplastics. When you capture these fishes or capture these crustaceans, we have seen the microplastic beads within them. When you pollute the ocean, the food is also polluted. The marine life is polluted. And that is same thing that they want to profess and tell you and promote and say that you bring it on your plate, you will have a better nutritional factor as compared to chickens or any other red. So these are the challenges. Coming to my tough questions. Now that's something, and this is my final pointer and some takeaways from here. What are the tough questions? Demand of aquatic foods is seen the highest amongst the affluent population across. And it is even going to rise further. And this is called as commodification in fishing industry. You have to commodify it. And that is what they are doing presently. They are trying to blue wash the public by saying that we have a blue revolution. You must eat more fishes. You must eat more crustaceans. But nobody is realizing more you blue wash, more you propagate that way. Do we have that many species surviving in these ecosystems? Unfortunately, and I am very afraid to say it is not. Check the red list. The red list given by the Conservation of Natures, the International Union for Conservation of Nature's IUCN Red List. And in there, you can just check this report on the internet, and you'll find there are so many species which are threatened. And why they are threatened? We don't have large population of them present in the ecosystem. So where are they now? What is happening? Why is it? Is it because of pollution? Is the reason climate change? Not really. It is overfishing. And what I told you just some minutes ago, I said that when you do overfishing, you're naturally going to disrupt the marine ecosystem. You're going to disrupt the food web. Naturally, you're going to upset the so-called climate, right? The reason is not climate change. The reason is we are impressing the climate change, right? And obviously, it's not plastic pollution that has been so said, it is just overfishing. And this has happened. The very first report comes in 2014 or 15, which talks about blue foods. And then now we are seeing a lot of them in reports because now they are absolutely pushing, because by 2030, we want to reach to SDGs. Claims of blue foods is not actually on bad science. I won't say this is bad science. You cannot say that 100 scientists are coming out from 25 countries are working on weak science. Absolutely no. That is not my point. My point is they're very selective. The parameters are very, very myopic, I would say short-sighted. Now, when you have such short-sighted narrative and you say that blue foods are best, that's really not the case. We have to really think what are the other parameters which we have missed out. Sometimes the scientists become so biased that they don't realize that what we are missing out on. You are comparing fish with a chicken, and fish diet with the chicken diet is absolutely a wrong comparison. Okay, you cannot say that I have chicken diet now. I have to change it to fish just because I fit that narrative. We have to find out different parameters. The parameters are very selective, and that is actually substantiating and validating their biases, which is actually largely adversely impacting the climate, rather than sustaining the climate, right? And finally, there is a long history. Actually, if you look at the history of fishing, you will find that there are a lot of cases where, on the basis of humanitarian grounds, we say that we are supporting the indigenous communities, we are supporting the fishermen. They are getting their daily wages based on whatever capture they get and bring it to the market. But that's not really true. They're highly exploited under the name of overfishing, under the name of getting the highest produce from the marine life, and they are constantly under threat when they are going into the sea and the oceans. They are not supposed to go out in the rain, but we still see them doing that. Plus, because there is a huge demand, and you have some population, who are highly affluent, and they can afford, this kind of rich delicacies under the name that they have even captured sharks, ray fishes for food. And now, under this narrative, they are going to be consumed even more. So it's a declining. Sharks and ray fishes are already declining. They're all under the red list. So what are we professing? Hence, before making such big claims that these kind of foods are going to come in my plate and I'm going to take care of the climate, is absolutely a biased opinion. Hence, as a scientist and you as a public, you must realize what should be on my plate. Okay. Largely, now just my one takeaway would be, because this must be I'm sure this must be the question, and I'm assuming these may be the questions in most of their mind. I'm not talking about veg and non-veg. Food choices are very personal. Food choices are actually cultural. Many people say that food choices are personal. Rather, I would say it's cultural, because it comes through your generations after generations, how it has been transferred from your grandmother to your mother, and so on. So, food is largely cultural, and we have to respect that, irrespective of what diet we may have. Apart from having respect, we must also broadly think about our future generation. Coming to that, many people are assuming that I am a plant based eater, so I am not to bother about the blue food and their climate sustenance. But let me tell you, when you talk about crops, when you talk about plants also, we have to realize that we don't have that much of land to grow them today. The land use is very competitive. And hence, again, tomorrow, maybe that crops may also not have a sufficient land to grow. Per hectare, how much are we going to grow? So, crops again, when you say plant based diet, again becomes kind of a question. And let me put it this way also, plant diet, entirely a plant diet, if you're having, naturally you are going to be under the deficit of some other micronutrients, which needs to be replenished by some other diet. So we have to find out these combinations. We have to find out these kind of diversity of foods in our plate. I always tell in one of the conferences that I had joined recently, we were discussing and deliberating about the food choices that we talk about, or the cultural impacts that we see is more rather than the policymakers. We have a lot of culture, and sometimes people say it's personal, it's actually cultural. There is one thing that we have to keep in mind, that when you should not keep anything away from your plate. In terms of your food diet, if you're having plant diet, you have to ensure that you have everything in your diet in terms of proteins, in terms of your micronutrients, and things like that. Talking about, when you say you're having chicken, you are having a marine based diet. Naturally, marine based diet, especially if I say edible seaweeds, they're very good in nourishment, right? Are we that explorative? Are we going to explore and eat those kind of foods? This is something that we need to really think about, right? If you are going from today it's a global world, and we must understand that we can explore this kind of diets, we can explore these kind of food choices in our diet, just to ensure that what we are missing out, especially zinc, is something, as I told you, in terms of crab based diet, you are going to get a lot of zinc. It gets kind of, there's not any other comparative food, very few are there, which we have. So don't exclude everything. Having an optimum doesn't actually impact you, right? And finally, I want to say, as I'm talking about climate sustenance, I want to say that all of you must actually watch. There is a very nice documentary on the frozen worlds, which talks about how the climate change has actually impacted the marine ecosystem. And we really need to understand, we can actually visibly now see that. It's not just a melting glacier, it is actually much more visible in terms of our marine life. So we have only one planet. We have to ensure that the marine life doesn't get disrupted due to the narrative of just a few scientists. Thank you.
That's a wonderful session, ma'am. First question is, how can blue food contribute the reducing of carbon footprint in food industry?
It does not. It does not. It is not reducing the carbon footprint.
Okay. And we have our next question, ma'am. How can individuals support the adoption of blue food practices in their communities?
Okay. Awareness. You have to do a lot. There are a lot of such non-profit organizations which are conducting such awareness campaigns. There are a lot of industries which have come up in this to support the ecosystem and to support the indigenous communities. We have something called as traditional knowledge, because this is a knowledge which not many may have. Everybody cannot go into the sea and capture, right? How to use the net. Especially, I'll give you an example which I have seen in Kochi in India, where you can see this kind of farming, and they have Chinese fishing nets. They have backwaters and they do this Chinese fishing nets to capture the marine, uh, you can say the marine capture and things like that. And they are very good at that. Everybody does not have that art of fishing. So we have to protect that. So under the government, as far as I know, Indian government, we have certain policies which are actually being implemented very rightly, and they are protecting these indigenous communities in a much larger way. And their, in fact, their livelihoods are much more sustained. As far as I know, the South Indian model, the South model, the South of India, they have a brilliant model of sustaining these fishermen and fisherwomen. And I think we need a little more awareness in terms of the other communities in other parts of the world. Also, it's not just pertaining to one region. We have to look at other regions as well and make more of these. And we as scientists also can involve with these NGOs and work with them. I know of one which I remember, which I had seen in Kochi. I plan to support them in future.
Thank you, Dr. Payal Bijoshi, for addressing our audience questions with clarity and expertise. Your insights have been invaluable in deepening our understanding of the role of blue food in climate sustenance. I would like to extend my appreciation to all our participants for their active engagement in Q&A session, and your thoughtful questions have enriched our discussion. Thank you all for being a part of this engaging and enlightening international webinar. As we conclude, let's remember that the journey towards a sustainable future is a collective effort. By embracing innovative solutions and conscious decision making, we can pave the way for more resilient and environmentally friendly food system. Now, to once again a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Payal V. Joshi, and to all our participants for making their webinar a success. We look forward to welcoming you to our future events.
Thank you. Thank you, Venkat, for all the help and for co hosting such a nice event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.